Mr. President, I've been coming every week and speaking about an epidemic that we have across our country. The state of West Virginia has been hit hard. I know Utah has been hit hard. There's not been a state that's been spared. This opiate epidemic, this prescription drug abuse, this ravaging our country and a whole generation of our people. And we have come to crisis point. In West Virginia, drug overdose deaths have soared by more than 700% since 1999. We lost 600 West Virginians to opiates last year alone. 600, more than any other cause of death in my state. Of the 628 drug overdose deaths in the state in 2014, most were linked to prescription drugs. These are legal drugs. 199 were oxycodone related, with 133 were attributed to hydrocodone. You know, we have a situation where basically people say, well, how did we get to this point? We've got products that are being made by reputable companies that we depend on for life-saving medication every day. So you have a reputable company. We have the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, who basically is our guardian, if you will. It's the gatekeeper of whether things we're consuming are good for us and will not be harmful. And then you have the most trusted person next to a member of your family, the doctor, telling you and prescribing, this is what you should take to make you better. So we have a runaway epidemic on our hands, and we got to get this genie back into the bottle. West Virginia had the highest rate of prescription drug overdose deaths by any state last year, 31 per 100,000 people. 31 people out of 100,000 people died. The next closest state was New Mexico at 25 deaths per 100,000. In West Virginia, providers wrote, I want you to listen to this figure. It's almost unbelievable. In West Virginia, providers wrote 138 painkiller prescriptions for every 100 people. I'm going to repeat that. They wrote, that means our doctors prescribed 138 prescriptions for every 100 people. Now, that's impossible. You would think that is absolutely abusive, and it is. Between 2007 and 2012, drug wholesalers shipped, this is an unbelievable amount, they shipped more than 200 million pain pills to West Virginia. Now, the population of my state is 1,850,000, give or take. So with a little over 1,800,000 people, the drug wholesalers shipped 200 million pain pills to my state of West Virginia. 40 million per year. And this number doesn't include shipments from the two largest drug wholesalers. Every day in our country, 51 Americans die from opioid abuse. Legal prescription drugs. National Drug Abuse Facts. Drug overdose was the leading cause of injury deaths in 2013. Among people 25 to 64 years old, drug overdose caused more deaths than motor vehicle carriers and crashes. There were 41,982 drug overdose deaths in the United States in 2013. Of these, 22,767, or 51.8%, were related to prescription drug doses. This is legal prescription drugs. Drug misuse and abuse caused about 2.5 million emergency department visits, these emergency rooms, in 2011. Of these, more than 1.4 million of these emergency room visits were related to prescription drugs. Again, legal prescription drugs. Among those emergency visits, 420,000 visits were related to opiate analgesics. Nearly 2 million Americans aged 12 or older either abused or were dependent on opiates in 2013. 2 million Americans. Of the 2.8 million people who used the illicit drug for the first time in 2013, 20% began with a non-medical use of a prescription drug. Non-medical, including pain relievers, tranquilizers, and stimulants. The United States makes up only 4.6% of the world's population. 4.6%. We're around 330 million. Over 7 billion people live on Mother Earth here. We make up less than 5% of the population. Yet we consume, the United States of America, we consume 80% of its opiates and 99% of the world's hydrocodone. 99% of the world's hydrocodone. Opioid abuse has jumped 287% in 11 years. In 2012, healthcare providers wrote 259 million prescriptions for painkillers. Enough for every American to have a bottle of pills. Think about that. Enough for every American to have a bottle of opiate pain pill. Misuse and abuse of prescription drugs cost the country an estimated $53.4 billion per year in lost productivity, medical costs, and criminal justice costs. If you talk to anybody any of the law enforcement officers in your hometown, your home community, your state, they'll tell you 8 out of 10, a minimum of 8 out of 10 of the crimes that they're reported, they go on, are drug-induced. 8 out of 10 usually are drug-induced. Currently, 1 in 10 Americans with substance abuse disorder receives treatment. So only 10% are getting treatment. And so many people over the years believed, and I was one of them 20 years ago, believed that, boy, if you fool with any types of drugs, you're committing a crime, we're going to put you in jail. Well, we put you in jail, but we just didn't cure anybody. It didn't get any better, so we better try something different. And it's been proven that addiction is an illness, and an illness needs treatment, and there is no treatment. Only 1 in 10 could find it. And since 1999, we've lost almost 200,000 Americans, 200,000, to prescription opiate abuse. We lose 200,000 in any other arena, and I guarantee you we will go into action. We will find a way to stop this, but we haven't done a thing about this. In October, President Obama came to Charleston, West Virginia to talk to people on the front lines of the epidemic. Following the visit, he called for emergency funding to combat the opioid crisis. Now we have presidential candidates talking about prescription drug abuse. Earlier this year, Secretary Clinton was in West Virginia talking about ways that we can work together to prevent and treat prescription drug abuse. The FDA began making changes to the way it approves opiate medications. The CDC, Centers for Disease Control, released much-needed guidelines for the prescribing opiates for managing chronic pain. We need serious culture change in America, and I mean serious culture change. To get the root of the problem, we need to change the approval of opioid drugs, the FDA. We can't have the Food and Drug Administration that's responsible for us getting products that are supposed to be good for us to consume, not knowing what the effects may be. And I keep telling him, I says, why do you continue to approve new opiates, painkillers coming on the market? Why? Don't we have enough? And if you do approve something new, don't you think something ought to be removed rather than just keeping more products on the market? I'm going to read a letter, and I read letters because I've always said this is a silent killer. The silent killer of drug abuse, of prescription drug abuse is, if it's in your family, we don't want to talk about it. It's my son or my daughter, it's my mom or my uncle, it's my aunt. We'll take care of it. We'll keep it within ourselves. So it's a silent killer because nobody talks about it. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew the heartache and all the absolutely devastating tragedies families were going through. They thought they could take care of it because we did not know it was an illness. We did not know it needed treatment. Did not have a place to send them. Most families don't have the resources to send them to the treatment centers. They're very, very expensive. So we've asked people to start speaking out. I'm getting letters from all over the country. I'm going to read Samantha Frazier's letter, and they're giving me names now. It's not anonymous. It used to be anonymous. Don't use my name. They want you to know. They want you to know and put a real face with a real name and a real person. I'm going to start by saying that I'm not from West Virginia. I live in Ohio, but I felt like I could still share my story with you. My dad's family is from West Virginia, and I have seen the devastation of the opiate epidemic there. It's just as bad here in Cincinnati and all the suburbs surrounding it. I grew up in Mason, Ohio, and had a good life. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor. My parents did everything they could to take care of me and my brother. I was very involved with a youth group in high school and just an all-around happy person. I went to a Christian university and just started drinking a lot. That went on for a few years, and by the time I was 21, I started using pills recreationally. Stupid choice. That was in 2008, and heroin was just starting to creep in everywhere. I used for 5 years, every day. Once I started, it was like I made a decision I could never quit, that I would use forever. I was such an evil, manipulative liar and a thief that people couldn't stand to be around me. I ruined every relationship I ever had. Finally, I got in trouble. I went on a small car chase, stupid I know, and was booked into jail on 11 charges, which resulted in 2 felonies, and I was sent to Monday Correctional Institute in Dayton, Ohio. It was there that I was taught the skills I needed to survive. I had to dig deep and really figure out who I was and what issues I really need to work on. I also received letters from women at church I didn't even know. I corresponded with them over the months. These women made me feel a sense of being surrounded, even though I was in a lockdown facility. I spent 5 months there, got a job, became a manager, and ran a failing pizza restaurant. About 10 months after being released, I found out I was pregnant with identical twin boys. I had some complications with my pregnancy and was on bed rest and still dealing with issues. My boys are 7 months old now. My boyfriend and I are both almost 3 years clean, and we're blessed enough to find someone to rent a house to us. I am currently involved in starting a nonprofit recovery home here in Warren County, Ohio, called The Nest. We will help women after they detox with a recovery home. The other part of my story is that I have also watched my family become crippled by this disease of addiction. My brother recently was using drugs. We couldn't find him help anywhere. Waiting list, insurance copays for thousands of dollars, flying to different states, nothing local. He ended up getting in trouble, and he now has a felony also. My aunt already lost one son to a heroin overdose, and 3 weeks ago we sat in the hospital with her daughter, holding her down because she had alcohol poisoning, and she was intubated and on a breathing machine. The pain, the hurt, I see it in everyone's eyes. I can't imagine what this is like. I look at my boys and pray that I will do everything I can to steer them away. It's in their genes, and they have to be careful. My heart is big, and I have spent nights crying over this. My friend Pete's funeral is next week. He died of heroin overdose. Every few weeks, someone dies. Or they are sent to jail and get no help. Get released or go to prison and don't get help. Spend their time with other people who don't want to change. They get released eventually and have no skills. Everyone is set up for failure. This is affecting every single person in this community, and I know it's like this in so many other places. I hope to hear of a dollar amount attached to the CARE Act and that there are changes. We need recovery homes, rehabs, different laws to encourage getting help, helping those in prison that want change, to provide a reachable opportunity. It is 100% possible to get clean, and I want everyone to know it is possible to share the hope that a successful life is achievable. I have a huge passion to change things and to help that change. I have sent letters, emails, web messages to all the congressmen, judges, prosecutors, City of Mason, Mason Police Department, and Warren County. I am doing whatever part I can. This is killing so many young lives and mothers, fathers, daughters, and sons, everyone, and they need to change. This is a letter, and I want to answer this by saying that we are trying. I have a piece of legislation that I have drafted, and this piece of legislation is going to have permanent funding that will go directly to treatment centers, directly 100% to treatment centers around this country. And what it does, it asks to be charged 1 penny per milligram, 1 penny per milligram for every opiate produced and sold in America. That'll raise about $1.5 to $2 billion. So I would ask all of my colleagues and friends who are afraid, oh, this is a new tax. This is a treatment center. This is a way to get people clean again. And this is what we're asking people to sign on to. I will guarantee you there won't be one family, Democrat or Republican, that would vote against you if you can help save their child and a place for them to go to get clean. This is so important. I want to thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to speak today and taking the time to read this letter and allowing us to share this letter with so many people, because it is personal. You can now put a face, you can put a story, you can put a family behind it. And that's what we all should be doing. It's no longer the silent killer. It's still a killer, but people are speaking out. They're asking for help. And that help comes from right here in the halls of the Senate and halls of Congress. We can make a difference in America and save a whole generation. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.